from the University of West Florida. I'm Christian Garment, specifically from the Department of Communication, sitting here with Dr. Athena du Pre, a distinguished university professor at the University of West Florida in the Communication Department. And Dr. du Pre, you also run the graduate program in our department, which deals specifically with strategic communication and leadership.
Yes.
Well, that's important because that's what we're talking about today. I think it's important right off the bat to say we're recording this before the election. So this is not one-sided. We have no idea who's going to win. But what we do know is it's going to be close. And I think we also know that however this thing goes, half the people, give or take, aren't going to love the outcome. And we also know that all of us still have to go to Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas parties and work with people and see our classmates. So what I wanted to talk to you with that set up, what I wanted to talk about is when we get in those situations, which feels inevitable to some degree, what are the smartest things we do? So let me just start by that. Again, we're all going to find ourselves, as we record this in the late fall, we're all going to find ourselves in these situations where we're talking to people, family members, etc., who maybe have differences of opinions. And they may want their opinion to be known, and things may get tense. You didn't want it to get tense. How do you handle that? How do you respond to that?
You know, I always say the first thing is just getting in the right mind space for this, the mindset. And 3 things that I recommend are, first of all, realize you're not alone. No matter what perspective you have, there's somebody who has another perspective and a different, and we just live in all of those perspectives, and it makes us uncomfortable. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, you are part of the rest of us. The second thing I like to help people understand is that it's really natural when somebody is espousing a viewpoint that we don't personally agree with. It's natural, I think, to feel a little crowded out. Whether I'm saying anything about my perspective or not, if somebody's talking about theirs, I can feel like they're occupying all the space and that I'm kind of on the side. And I do this mental practice. Sounds a little nutty, but work with me.
Okay, I will.
Okay. The mental practice is I remind myself that there's room for infinite perspectives. And even though it may feel like they're just taking up all the airspace, I visualize each perspective as a cantaloupe. I told you it's going to get a little weird.
You know what, I'm out. No,
right.
I'm kidding.
That's right. No,
I didn't know we were going there.
We didn't think we were going to go to fruit.
There's a limit.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So here's what I do, because a cantaloupe seems just about the right size to me. So I think, okay, their perspective is a cantaloupe.
Okay.
And it may be a very loud cantaloupe. Maybe a cantaloupe that's not very comfortable for me, but it's a cantaloupe. And my perspective could be a cantaloupe. And there's I choose that fruit because there's room for a whole lot of them. And I think somehow imagining that helps me think, okay, there is space, even though it doesn't always feel that way.
Well, when that's happening, and you're right, I mean, it's just one person giving their thought, and
Sure.
for all we know, if there's 8 people in the room, 7 may or may not disagree. But as you say, in the moment, it feels like they're just dominating, and you almost can't help but feel your blood boil and all those sorts of things, and you want to just come out. So how do you respond in a way that is not confrontational, but maybe still respectful? You know, you want to keep it smooth, but not confrontational, but in a way that you also are able to say how you feel about something.
Certainly, absolutely. I think one thing that's important to remember is that you don't have to engage. There are times when I think, you know, as you say, my blood pressure, my emotions are too intense now. I don't want this to become an all and out brawl. And so sometimes the best thing that I can do is just stay calm. I can just listen. I don't always have to engage. I can say things like, thank you for sharing your perspective, but not jump in. There's another technique that we teach, and I really love this one. It's called humble inquiry. And the humble part of that, the humility, is telling yourself, you know, I don't know everything. There's always something I could learn. There's always something I could be aware of. And so it's not about, will this person change my mind or not? That's kind of irrelevant.
Sure.
But it's like, could I learn something about them maybe? And so adopting that humility. And then the inquiry part is then asking questions. And not questions that are passively aggressive, designed to destroy their argument, but questions that are friendly and non-leading. So if your Uncle Frank is going on and on about nuclear policy and you're not really comfortable going there, you can say, sounds like you're really into the environment. Tell me how did you develop that passion in the environment? And then listen. respectfully.
Boy, we've all got an Uncle Frank, don't we?
Don't we? Yes, a few.
I love your point that sometimes when you come back with questions, it feels like you're just trying to get them.
Right.
And it's so important because then they're now more defensive and then it just builds and builds and builds. So you're so right. If you had that genuine inquiry where you're literally just trying to find out where they're coming from, it just feels different. And everybody can feel that that is genuine. So last thing I want to ask you is when this is happening and maybe you want to get your side, you know, you've heard them, you've been respectful, but you've got something to say as well. How do you do that in a way that isn't like, oh yeah, well guess what?
Right. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I think maintaining a perspective that in most cases, I'm not trying to change anybody's opinion. I think we almost have to start there. Now I know people, I know friends, I know life partners who say we love to debate each other. If you both love it, go for it.
Sure.
Go for it. Probably you're not even changing the mind anyway, but you just love that.
Yeah.
It's the fun. It's a verbal sparring. If you know the other person's into that, that's great. But if you're in a group or with somebody you don't know, I always say, don't try to change people's minds. None of us like that. It feels usually like a power play. It feels like I'm trying to dominate your way of thinking. So first of all, give up that. Second of all, you can say things, but make sure you're not making them personal. So you can say, after you've listened respectfully and after you've adjusted your expectations, so I'm not trying to dominate this conversation, you can say, some people feel that. Or you can say, for me, the issues I care most about are, and you can name those without being confrontational. You can still introduce some.
Boy, as we sit here and record this, it sounds so simple.
Oh, doesn't it though? Yes.
Well,
Exactly.
hopefully anybody that has heard this great advice will be able to put it to use in the coming months and maybe even in the coming years. Dr. du Pre, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Athena du Pre, Distinguished Professor from the University of West Florida. I'm Christian Garvin from the Department of Communication. Appreciate you watching.